On a crisp morning in the small town of Harwood, a routine day in the county courthouse took a turn no one could have anticipated. Officer Daniel Harper, a seasoned member of the local police force, was led, quite literally, by his K-9 partner Bravo, into a courtroom where a high-profile drug trafficking case was underway. What began as a standard security sweep ended with Bravo's relentless tugging toward a judge's bench, uncovering a secret that left the entire courtroom in stunned silence. Officer Daniel Harper had seen his fair share of tense moments in his 12 years with the Harwood Police Department. At 35, he was known for his steady demeanor and unwavering commitment to the job. His German Shepherd, Bravo, was equally respected, a 4-year-old K-9 trained to detect narcotics with a precision that had earned him a reputation among law enforcement. The pair had been inseparable since Bravo's first day on the force, their bond forged through countless hours of training and fieldwork. On this particular Tuesday, they were assigned to perform a routine security check at the Harwood County Courthouse, a task they'd done dozens of times before. The courthouse, a modest brick building in the heart of town, was bustling with activity. A major case was being heard that day, a drug trafficking trial involving a local man, Marcus Tate, accused of running a methamphetamine distribution ring. The case had drawn attention not just for its severity but for the whispers of corruption that had begun to swirl around it. Tate, a charismatic figure with deep ties to the community, had pleaded not guilty, and his defense team was aggressively challenging the prosecution's evidence. The tension in the air was palpable as lawyers, reporters, and curious onlookers filled the hallways. Harper and Bravo began their sweep at 8 a.m., moving methodically through the courthouse's corridors. Bravo's nose was low to the ground, his tail steady, as he scanned for anything out of the ordinary. The K-9's training was rigorous. He could detect even trace amounts of narcotics, from cocaine to fentanyl, with an accuracy rate that rivaled the best technology. Harper trusted Bravo implicitly, often joking that the dog had a better sense of judgment than most people he knew. As they approached Courtroom 3, where Tate's trial was set to resume, Bravo's demeanor shifted. His ears perked up and his gait quickened. Harper noticed the change immediately. "What's up, boy?" he murmured, tightening his grip on the leash. Bravo's nose twitched and he pulled toward the courtroom door, his body tense with purpose. Harper hesitated. The courtroom was already filling with people, lawyers arranging their notes, the bailiff checking his watch, and spectators settling into the pews. Judge Evelyn Carter, a no-nonsense veteran of the bench, was due to take her seat in minutes. Bravo, however, was undeterred. He tugged harder, letting out a low whine that Harper recognized as the dog's signal for a scent hit. "Easy, Bravo," Harper said, glancing around. He didn't want to disrupt the proceedings, but Bravo's insistence was impossible to ignore. The K-9's training left no room for false positives. If Bravo was this focused, something was in that courtroom. Harper signaled to the bailiff, a stocky man named Greg, who raised an eyebrow but nodded for them to enter. Inside, the courtroom was a sea of murmurs. Tate sat at the defense table, his tailored suit crisp, his expression calm but watchful. His attorney, Laura Bennett, was flipping through a stack of documents, while the prosecutor, Assistant DA Michael Ruiz, reviewed his notes. The gallery was half-filled, with reporters scribbling in their notepads and locals whispering about the case's implications. Harper guided Bravo along the perimeter, keeping the dog's movements subtle to avoid drawing attention. But Bravo had other plans. The K-9 made a beeline for the judge's bench, a massive oak structure at the front of the room. Harper tried to redirect him, but Bravo's strength was surprising, even for a dog of his size. He yanked the leash, pulling Harper forward, his paws scrabbling on the polished floor. A few heads turned, and the bailiff stepped forward, his hand raised. "Officer, everything okay?" Greg asked, his voice low but firm. "I'm not sure," Harper replied, his eyes on Bravo. The dog was now at the base of the bench, sniffing frantically, his tail rigid. He pawed at the floor, then looked up at Harper, letting out a sharp bark. The sound echoed in the quiet courtroom, and all eyes were now on the officer and his dog. Judge Carter, who had just entered and was adjusting her robes, froze at the bench. "Officer Harper, what is the meaning of this?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the room. Harper felt a bead of sweat form at his temple. "Ma'am," bravos indicating assent. "I need to check the area." Judge Carter's eyes narrowed, but she nodded curtly. "Proceed, but make it quick." Harper knelt beside Bravo, who was now nosing at the underside of the bench, where a narrow gap separated the wood from the floor. The K9's intensity was unmistakable. Whatever he'd detected was close. Harper pulled a small flashlight from his belt and shone it into the gap. At first, he saw nothing but dust and a few stray papers. Then Bravo nudged his arm, directing his attention to a small, dark object wedged beneath the bench's frame. Harper's heart skipped a beat. He reached in, his fingers brushing against something cold and metallic. Carefully he pulled it out, a small, sealed tin, no bigger than a pack of cigarettes. The weight of it felt wrong, too heavy for its size. He glanced at Bravo, who sat back, his job done, and then at the courtroom, where every pair of eyes was locked on him. "Judge, I've got something," Harper said, holding up the tin. Judge Carter's expression was unreadable. "Open it, officer," she said, her tone steady but laced with curiosity. Harper pried open the tin, and the room collectively held its breath. Inside was a tightly packed bundle of plastic bags, each filled with a white crystalline substance. Harper didn't need Bravo to confirm what it was. The texture and packaging screamed methamphetamine. But that wasn't all. Beneath the bags was a folded piece of paper, its edges worn. Harper unfolded it, revealing a handwritten note with names, dates, and dollar amounts, names that included people in the courtroom. A gasp rippled through the gallery. Judge Carter leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "Officer, bring that to me immediately," she ordered. Harper complied, handing the tin and its contents to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. She examined the note, her face growing paler with each passing second. "Bailiff, clear the courtroom," she said, her voice like steel. "Now!" As spectators and reporters were ushered out, their murmurs growing louder, Harper stood by Bravo, his mind racing. The note wasn't just a list. It was a ledger, detailing payments and deliveries tied to the drug trade. Some of the names were unfamiliar, but others were shockingly recognizable. Local business owners, a city council member, and, most disturbingly, someone connected to the courthouse itself. Judge Carter called an immediate recess and summoned the attorneys to her chambers. Harper and Bravo were asked to remain, as the judge wanted a full report on the discovery. The prosecution and defense teams were visibly shaken. Ruiz, the prosecutor, demanded to know how such evidence could have been overlooked, while Bennett, Tate's attorney, argued that the find was inadmissible, claiming it could have been planted. Tate himself sat silently, his earlier confidence replaced by a tight-lipped stare. The investigation that followed was swift and relentless. The ledger pointed to a network far larger than Tate's operation, implicating individuals who had flown under the radar for years. Forensic teams descended on the courthouse, combing through every inch of the building. The tin's contents tested positive for high-purity methamphetamine, and the handwriting on the ledger was matched to a former courthouse employee who had left under suspicious circumstances months earlier. Harper and Bravo became the focus of intense scrutiny. Reporters hounded them for details, and the story spread like wildfire. How had a drug stash and incriminating ledger ended up under the judge's bench? Theories abounded, from a botched attempt to frame Tate to a desperate move by someone in the network to hide evidence during the trial. The former employee, a man named Carl Whitaker, was arrested within days, but he refused to talk, leaving more questions than answers. For Harper, the discovery was a double-edged sword. He and Bravo were hailed as heroes by some, but others in the community viewed them with suspicion, wary of the upheaval their find had caused. The ledger's implications reached beyond Harwood, triggering a statewide investigation into corruption and drug trafficking. Judge Carter, shaken by the breach in her courtroom, vowed to oversee the case with renewed vigilance, determined to root out any further misconduct. Bravo, oblivious to the chaos, remained by Harper's side, his loyalty unwavering. The K-9's instincts had uncovered a truth that no one else had seen coming, proving once again that his nose was sharper than any human's intuition. For Harper, the experience was a reminder of why he'd chosen this path: to serve, to protect, and to trust his partner, no matter where the trail led. As the investigation deepened, Harper couldn't shake the feeling that they'd only scratched the surface. The ledger was a map to a hidden world, one that had operated in plain sight for far too long. And while the courtroom had been cleared that day, the echoes of Bravo's bark lingered, a warning that the truth, once uncovered, could never be ignored.